To our classmates, Prof. Crisanami M. Karaeg, as planning day. Currently, we're going to present four assumptions as an explanation of delinquency by Shawn McKay, Edwin Sutherland, 9 proposition of Sutherland's that Daniel Glaser, Robert L. Burgess, and Robert L. Akers. But before we start, allow me to introduce the members of this specific group. Winston Ibanez, Ryan Lau, and I, Cheryl Arlawas, the presenters. Without further ado, let's get started. Clifford Shaw and Harley D. McKay, two criminology researchers from the Chicago School, created a social disorganization theory through their research in 1942. According to the theory of social disorganization, a person's physical and social circumstances play a major role in the behavioral decision that a person makes. Location is helpful in predicting illegal activity according to the social disorganization theory. Based on Shaw and McKay, areas with high crime rates probably have at least three issues: physical toxicity, poverty, and a concentration of people from various ethnic and cultural backgrounds. Also, according to Shaw and McKay, delinquency is a natural response by normal people to abnormal circumstances rather than being produced at the individual level. So the social disorganization theory is frequently employed as a significant predictor to juvenile criminality and violence. So the four particular assumptions were found by Shaw and McKay to be an explanation for delinquency. So the first assumption is the collapse of community-based controls and people living and these disadvantaged neighborhoods are responding naturally to environmental condition. Now, the second is the rapid growth of immigration in urban disadvantaged neighborhoods. The third is business located that are influenced by the ecological approach of competition and dominance. The fourth and last assumption is the disadvantaged urban neighborhoods led to the development of criminal values that replace normal society values. As according to social disorganization theory, a person's residential location matters more than their personal attributes when predicting criminal behavior. And young people who live in these places are encouraged to commit crimes by the local culture and underprivileged urban districts. So therefore, according to the social disorganization theory, location is important when it comes to criminality. So social disorganization theory, the future of the theory, since it was initially presented in 1942, so the social disorganization theory has received a great deal of attention to the field of criminology. Numerous investigations conducted in major U.S. cities have confirmed that the conclusions of the original study by Shaw and McKay. So studies on the social disorganization theory can assist government and law enforcement policymakers in establishing measures that help avoid criminal behavior in underprivileged communities and make it safer for everyone by helping them make informed judgment based on the evidence. So over the years, this theory has been strengthened by research that emphasizes the effect of influencers as well as intervening factors like family disturbance and a community's or neighborhood's capacity to handle or prevent its local problems. So this idea, which has a strong US foundation, but it's nevertheless applicable broadly in its use and is suited to community systems. Youth delinquency will always be influenced by socio-economic circumstances and poverty, and a lot of it will depend on who influences the youth in their communities. So social disorganization. So next, please. So the factors that will link to social disorganizations are overcrowding, poverty, heterogeneity, um, residential mobility, broken homes, and breakdown in informal social controls are there are the factors of lack of parental supervision and effective community organizations, conflicting culture values. So next is the gangs and delinquency. Youth freed from restraints, street corner youth gangs, juvenile delinquency. So development of criminal subcultures, so the development of own set of values and norms, also conventional values and norms. So next, norms transmitted from gang member to gang member. So from older gang members to new gang members. So Edwin Sutherland, who is Edwin Sutherland? So he conceptualized the differential association theory, or DAT, in 1939 and revised in 1947, which the idea that people pick up the beliefs, attitudes, methods, and motivations behind criminal behavior through social interactions. So he introduced differential associations as a general theory of crime and delinquency that describes how deviant acquire the motives and understand exactly for engaging in criminal or deviant behavior. Sutherland also wrote the influential book of criminology, which was published in 1924 and later renamed Principles of Criminology in 1939. Sutherland made the claim that association with criminals rather than non-criminals leads to the development of habitual patterns of criminality. The idea also had a structural component that said that because conflict and social disorder shape the patterns of persons connected with crime, they are responsible factors of it. So note that Edwin Sutherland is also entitled as the father of American criminology. So frequently asked questions. So what are the three characteristics does association theory have? So the differential association theory has the following three characteristics. So first is a person becomes a criminal if they hang out with criminals. Number two is criminal behavior can be picked up from someone close to you. Last is compared to older children, young children are more likely to acquire criminal behavior. What is it? Ethics is a different associations. What in ethics is a different association? The term ethics differential association describes engaging a group that exhibits a certain set of behaviors. Being around a gang of criminals will cause one to act in a criminal manner as well. So what does differential association theory constitute? So according to differential association theory, a person's surroundings and social circle shape their criminal behavior. They excuse their misdeeds and considers what they did to be normal. And lastly, what is a differential association theory example? If someone were to steal a bike from someone else, that would be an illustration of differential association theory. They would claim that they only required one bike because they already own two. Next, please.
So this is the 9 proposition of Sutherland. Number 1, criminal behavior is learned. This means that criminal behavior is not inherited as such as also the person who is not already trained in crime does not invent criminal behavior. Number 2 is criminal behavior is learned in interaction with other persons in a process of communication. This communication is verbal in many cases but includes gesture. Number three, the principal part of learning of criminal behaviors occurs within intimate personal groups. Negatively, this means that impersonal communication such as movie or newspapers plays a relatively unimportant part in committing crime behavior. Number four is when criminal behavior is learned, the learning includes letter A, techniques of committing the crime, which are sometimes very simple. B, the specific direction of motives drives rationalization and attitudes. Number five is the specific direction of the motive and drive is learned from definition of the legal codes as favorable or unfavorable. This different context of situation usually is found in US where culture conflicts in relation to the legal code exist. Number six is a person become delinquent because of an excess of definitions favorable to violation of law over definition, unfavorable to violation of law. This is principle of differential association. When people become criminal, they do so not only because of contacts with criminal patterns, but also because of isolation from anti-criminal patterns. Negatively, this means that association which are neutral so far as crime is concerned have little or no effect on the genesis of criminal behavior. Number seven, the process of learning criminal behavior by association with criminal and anti-criminal patterns involve all of the mechanisms that are involved in any other learning. Negatively, this means that the learning of criminal behavior is not restricted to the process of imitation. A person who is seduced, for instance, learn criminals' behavior by association, but this would not be ordinarily described as imitation. Number eight is while criminal behavior is an expression of general needs and values, it is not explained by those general needs and values since non-criminal behavior is an expression of the same needs and values. Thieves generally steals in order to secure money, but likewise, honest laborers work in order to money. The attempt to explain criminal behavior by general drives and values, such as the money motive, have been and must completely to be futile since they explain lawful behavior as completely as they explain criminal behavior. Number nine is differential association may vary in frequency, duration, priority, and intensity. Priority means to be important principally through the selective influence, and intensity has to do with such things as the prestige of the source of a criminal or anti-criminal patterns and with emotional reactions related to the association. These modalities would be rated in quantitative form and mathematical ratio, but development of formula in the sense has not been developed and would be very difficult. Next. So let's talk about Daniel Glazer. Daniel Glaser proposed a revision of DAT, which he called as the differential identification theory in 1956. It attempts to focus greater attention on individual factors that intervene between environmental contact and criminal behavior. Glaser states a person pursues criminal's behaviors to the extent that he identifies himself with real or imaginary person from whose perspective his criminal behavior seems acceptable. These important things, according to Glaser, was that the individual identify with the person or characters and thus behave in the way that fits the norm set of this reference group or person. Next.
Robert L. Burgess and Robert L. Akers. Burgess and Akers, in 1966, they developed the differential association reinforcement theory. They reevaluate Sutherland's theory about differential association using behaviorism. They incorporated the psychological principle of operant conditioning and maintained that even non-social effect can reinforce criminal behavior. Similar to the mechanism of differential association, whereby an imbalance of norms, values, and attitude favorable towards committing a criminal act increase the probability that an individual will engage in such behavior. An imbalance in differential reinforcement also increase the likelihood that individual will commit a given behavior. 7 principles of Burgess and Akers that illustrate the process wherein learning takes place. Reformulation of Sutherland's principles 1 and 8. Criminal behavior is learned according to the principles of operant conditioning. Reformulation of Sutherland's principle 2. Criminal behavior is learned both in non-social situations that are reinforcing or discriminative and through that social interaction in which the behavior of other person is reinforcing or discriminative for criminal behavior. Reformulation of Sutherland's principle 3. The principal part of the learning of criminal behavior occurs in those groups which comprise the individual's major source of reinforcement. Reformulation of Sutherland's 4. The learning of criminal behavior, including specific techniques, attitude, and avoidance procedures, is a function of the effective and available reinforcer and existing reinforcement contingencies. Reformulation of Sutherland's principle 5. The specific class of behavior which are learned and their frequency of occurrence are function of the reinforcers which are effective and available and the rules or norms by which these reinforcers are applied. Reformulation of Sutherland's principle 6. Criminal behavior is a function of norms which are discriminative for criminal behavior, the learning of which takes place when such behavior is more highly reinforced than non-criminal behavior. Reformulation of Sutherland's principles 7. The strength of criminal behavior is direct function of the amount, frequency, and probability of its reinforcement. Next.
So, Psalms chapter 40, verse 1 to 31. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out on the slimy pit. Out of the mud and mire, he set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. Truth. God hears your cries of pain. He is your steady foundation when everything else falls apart. And a reminder, At the first place, we are criminologists in the future. We expected to implement peace and order, but we are not limited with this aspect. We are the law enforcers that strongly enforce the existing law from national even to local. As a government servant, we are up to the standards or policy according to the law. We are responsible for this, to know the law and abide the law. And that is the significance of knowing this topic in relation to our course. Thank you and God bless you all.